Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool.
Hello.
I guess I'm still doing that.
I've got a cold.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still sick.
I'm still sick.
I've been sick for like a year now, or a month.
Yeah.
It's been on and on and on. So, what have you got to talk about today, huh?
Well, I had a thought, right?
Yeah.
While I was sitting down about
Yeah.
for more brushing my teeth. I was looking in the mirror. I noticed, like, below, like, your nose and stuff, you get, like, a bunch of facial hair growing and stuff. And, like, even your eyelash and eyebrows can get quite bushy. You can get some hair on your nose.
Yeah.
And then there's the hair on the top of your head.
Yeah.
And then you have your forehead,
Yeah.
which is just devoid of hair.
Yeah.
I was like, what would it be like if people like grew beards on their foreheads? I was just wondering, like, and
Speak for yourself.
would people like shave their foreheads in like fancy patterns and? I mean, people don't really shave their beards or hair in fancy patterns. Like, you know, get some good old the Scottish, the Celtic chains. Like, imagine a hairdo. You shave your hair so it looks like a Celtic chain or something. And you let that grow out.
No, I think like it would if you're just covered in hair. Like you just be covered in hair. That's it. Just, you know, the forehead's the only place where hair doesn't grow.
I mean, even
Except your
on
teeth.
like gorillas and chimps, they don't get a lot of forehead hair.
Yeah, but they don't shave it, do they?
People don't shave their foreheads.
And neither do gorillas.
Yeah, but they don't get hair there either.
No, gorillas have hair on their foreheads.
No, they don't.
They're bald.
No, they've got like a ridge where it was just like the black leathery skin.
Hair.
No, there's no hair there.
Pretty sure it's hair.
I've looked at pictures of Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong has hair.
Sorry, of gorillas.
Gorillas have hair.
Not on their foreheads.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Well, they do, but... Well, moving on.
Yeah, so that's what I came up with.
So I've been watching a lot of Daniel Green. And Daniel Green's a YouTuber who does videos on books. And he really likes The Wheel of Time.
Really? Tell me more.
What?
I am very interested. Go on with this completely natural sounding conversation.
Well, can we talk... We have a rule against books, but...
No, we don't. Just talk about books, damn it.
Well,
There's no rules against book. I've annulled that ages ago.
He's a book against YouTubers.
He's a book against new YouTubers.
He makes books. He reads books.
On YouTube.
And then he talks about them.
Ah.
He talks about them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he did recently his top 10 fantasy series.
Yeah.
And most of them were Brandon Sanderson. And it had me like wondering about my top 10. And
So you want to do your top 10 fantasy books? Well, quickly let me write down my own.
well, not exactly, but it was he ranks Wheel of Time as his favorite, and as someone who hasn't read The Wheel of Time, which is you, basically it was more like it's not so much about books as like I was thinking about how I want to like make a counter channel to him and call it like Cameron Blue because he has like Daniel Green.
Yeah.
And like he's blonde and I'm blonde and we could both stare into the camera. He has blue eyes and I could have green eyes and I could like stare into the like a really bright light like he does to make his eyes sparkle and be like this book and then this book. Of course his earlier stuff he sounded really tired all the time. He was like yeah, I want to... But now he's like, all right, jump cut. Whoa, what? He slap himself between cuts probably. And
I've always enjoyed jump cuts.
I don't know. It seems weird to devote your life to the Wheel of Time, given that
he has.
Given that he's read better books, like obviously, like he's read Lord of the Rings. He's read at least part of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, although he seemed to be not liking it after a while, which. I don't know how, like...
I mean, after you've read the first 3 books, you have to read the rest of the series.
He didn't read them in the proper order, though. He read book 1 and then book 3 and then book 2, which might be part of the problem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure, but it's...
Why would you not read them in order?
He couldn't get a hold of them or something, I don't know.
I never understand. It's like, oh, I read the 3rd book of the series because I didn't have the 1st, I only had the 3rd, and now I want to read the 1st book, and it's like...
I did that with Artemis Fowl, but that's because I didn't know that I wasn't reading the 1st book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to make like a counter series because if you look, it's very interesting. If you look at the comments on his video, he asked, "What are your like top 10 books?"
Yeah.
And he wanted to know what his audience's top 10 books were, and because he wanted to do a video where he adds them all together and like does the points. And it was very consistent what the top 10 books were, which I think's like if you ask who the top 10 greatest generals of all time are, you get a huge variety of like answers.
Yeah.
You get some that are super like contested, like Patton is hugely contested, and Rommel and Robert Lee, E. Lee or whatever his name is.
And Admiral.
Well, he's an admiral, not a general.
Aren't admirals generals?
Maybe. Like Yu Sun Shin, I think. Like
he's the greatest admiral.
Well, part of the problem of naming the greatest general is people aren't talking about the same things. Mm-hmm. For instance, Yu Sun Shin, if you have him leading you in a battle, he's the guy you want. Like, man, he's amazing. Like 30 to 300, he won with 2 losses. Not 2 boat losses. He lost 2 men against 300 ships.
Wow.
And he kept all his own ships, captured 100 of the Japanese ships, sunk the other 200 or something with 30 ships. Like, he's insane. And you might say, oh, the turtle ships are way better. They only used 5 at most in any combat. Turtle ships were quite sparingly used. So, and he also helped design this turtle ship, so there's that.
So, boat battle, though, he's amazing.
Boat battle, he's incredible. But if you're talking about, let's say, managing an entire empire successfully while doing a combat, then you go to like Sun Tzu, or you go to...
Well, I think Sun Tzu is pretty good.
Or
on
Sun Tzu, or whatever his name is. Yeah, in a lot of, like, in many levels. But that's the thing. Do you go for the strategic level? Do you go for the tactical level? Do you go for both combined?
Well, I think Sun Tzu is pretty good on all levels.
And also, there's weird stuff to take into account. Like, let's say, like Napoleon, generally considered the best general of all time. Like, that's the general consensus. But Napoleon...
was beaten, so...
No, Napoleon was never beaten.
Yeah, he was.
Not really, no. I don't think so.
In his final battle, he lost.
Oh, yeah, okay. Napoleon was beaten a few times, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But Napoleon...
He got beaten. That's why we're not speaking French right now. Napoleon was beaten, Cameron. We're speaking English, not French.
Napoleon won more battles than, like, any other general.
Yeah.
And so his, like, 2 or 3 losses barely registered. Like, among, like...
His final loss was pretty
Napoleon has probably fought more battles than any other general in existence. I'm not sure on that, but I think he probably fought more battles than any other general. And he won almost every single one of them.
Okay, what about Alexander the Great?
Alexander, I don't think he fought as many. Napoleon fought an insane amount of battles.
Did Alexander the Great lose any battles?
No, Alexander the Great never lost. That one I'm pretty sure on.
However, he was like handed the best army and technology ever.
So that's the question. So the question of your citizens is a big one. Because Napoleon, he lost a few battles, but he won more battles than any other general. Yeah. Amazing. He fought over and over. And sometimes against worse odds, right? Yeah. But he had so many French troops that he could afford to be incredibly reckless in every single combat. And then if he lost like 20,000 troops, he didn't lose that many in a single combat. But if he lost that many troops, just next day, his army's full strength again.
Yeah, he was France. It's like playing Europe Universalis. You're French.
But you can't, if you have a full strength army after every battle, you are way more powerful than any other nation.
Whereas like Sun Tzu won a battle outnumbered like 1 to 2.
But Sun Tzu had all of Wu behind him, which was pretty big as well.
No, Wu was small compared to the other kingdoms. Sun Tzu made Wu big.
Right, okay. So maybe Sun Tzu did then in that case good. But let's say Alexander. Yeah. I think he's overrated a lot of the time, but he didn't get reinforcements. Like, they had sailed across the sea, right? Yeah. Like that. Or Hannibal. Hannibal literally had 0 reinforcements. There was, like, Hannibal took, like, 10 years to get to Rome or something. And
yeah, with a lot of losses.
And he lost most of his troops along the way, and he still won almost every fight. Yeah. And then there's Scorpio, or Scipio, whatever his name was, Africanus, who beat Hannibal. I mean, so he's the guy that beat Hannibal. So there's a funny story. Hannibal they were both quite old at this point, like I think in their 70s possibly. So Hannibal and Scipio were in a gymnasium, or Scorpio, Africanus. I'll call him Africanus because I can't remember his first name. So Africanus asked him, so who do you think the greatest general ever is? Yeah. And apparently Africanus was hoping Hannibal would say him. Like, he would say Africanus because Africanus beat Hannibal. And Hannibal said, I think the greatest general of all time was Alexander. And Africanus was like, okay, you can't beat Alexander, fair enough. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, so who's the second greatest general of all time? And so he stated, I can't remember the second person he stated, but it wasn't Africanus either. And he's like, oh, okay, well, who's the third greatest general of all time? And then Hannibal was like, I think I am. And then Scipio's, where would you have ranked yourself if I hadn't defeated you? And Hannibal said, if I had beaten you instead of you beating me, then I would have ranked myself the greatest of all generals. And so it's kind of like, where does that put Africanus? So it's kind of a compliment to Africanus, actually, in a way. He basically says, if I had beaten you, I would have been the greatest general ever.
Yeah.
So it kind of puts him and Africanus above Alexander in a way. But it also puts Alexander first, so it's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, Alexander was handed like the greatest army ever and the best technology.
Yeah.
But he didn't get reinforcements. However, he acquired reinforcements on his campaign.
Yeah.
By assimilating his beaten armies into his own army. And just kept on going. He had like super momentum.
And so I think, in my opinion, I think the greatest general ever is Julius Caesar. Because, and it's not necessarily because he's amazing, although he was. It's because he's the only general who had exactly equal footing or even slightly worse footing, for sure. Because it was a civil war. And it was like an evenly split civil war. Like, I think that's why people also say, like...
well, I think Sun Tzu actually had worse odds than he won.
But there's technology and training to take into account. Sun Tzu was really good at training soldiers.
Yeah.
But identically trained soldiers, civil war, identical technology, identical wealth. Like, Pompey and Caesar were both members of the trifecta or whatever.
Trifecta.
Yeah, the trifecta. So it's like super evenly split.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Cato, I think, was the third member.
Yeah.
And he was on Pompey's side. So if anything, like, Julius Caesar was fighting at a disadvantage. And
yeah, they had all the money.
Yeah, like Cato had all the money.
He actually did have all the money.
And Pompey was insanely rich as well.
Mm-hmm.
Pompey was a war hero who took tons of gold from Africa, like probably literal tons. Like he was insanely rich as well. And Cato was richer somehow.
Cato like had real estate.
Yeah,
his money was in land.
So, but the thing is, we shouldn't really debate like who the greatest general is without defining like on what level.
Yeah,
because you could say like, in a single combat, like, who do you want? And Julius Caesar is amazing on every level.
Yeah.
Like, Julius Caesar turned around, all the Romans were retreating, then Julius Caesar ran on his own to fight the enemy. I think it was the Gauls, possibly. Yeah. Went to fight the Gauls on his own, and his army was like, we gotta save Caesar, and so they all ran with him. And he was, like, dodging, like, spears and stuff up front. So he's really good on the small level, but he's also, like, a grand strategist.
Yeah.
And Napoleon was similar. He would fight on the front lines.
And also Sun Tzu is similar. In that whole thing, like the famous story of Sun Tzu, outnumbered 2-1, and he's ordered his troops into a box canyon.
Yeah.
He went with them.
Yeah.
He was in that box canyon and fought alongside them.
Yeah, so, and he also, like, you know, maneuvered this massive campaign against the rest of China.
And also trained all the soldiers.
And made Wu way bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese names are adorable.
China's scary, though.
Yeah.
Oh, China's name's so cute! And you're like saying it's so cute, and it's like a giant grizzly bear.
Yeah.
But it's got cute names pinned to its belly.
So I think that's why books are, in part, easy. Like, if you say top fantasy series of all time, it's a lot easier to, like...
Good writing, good story, cool world.
Yeah, and also it's not like...
Their writing technology, though, was better for Sanderson than Tolkien.
Or you could say, like, J.K. Rowling had less money when she started, so it's more impressive that she got to where she is. So you could say who the better writer is, maybe. Mm-hmm. That would be a more difficult argument, I think.
Yeah.
Because you could say, like, Brandon Sanderson excels at interpersonal and political things.
He writes how to be inspired. Like, he writes...
J.K. Rowling, however, took immaculate notes and planned this all out while working a full-time job as a waitress. She was desperate for money, and she managed to make this amazing series.
Yeah.
And then you could say, like, I don't know, someone like Tolstoy, who wrote Game of Thrones. I mean, like, what the heck? Why did I say that?
Tolstoy wrote Game of Thrones.
Where did that come from? I was thinking of Beards, I think, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, but he wrote War and Peace. Amazing book, amazing writer. But he was like a lord, so he had tons of money. He could sit back and write at his leisure. So it's like, oh, is he as good a writer?
Or Name of the Wind. Guy was written like an amazing writer, or it takes him like 20 years per book or something.
Yeah, whereas Mao's in Book of the Fallen, he doesn't edit his books.
Yeah,
and they're really solid already.
They stand up.
So in that case, and that's a weird measure, who's the better writer.
Yeah.
So, but best book, I think, is a lot easier. Another thing you can say is, like, that does make it a bit more complicated, is this one. He said best fantasy series you like the most. Mm-hmm. He had a previous list, which was a favorite completed fantasy series, because something like Stormlight Archives is really hurt by the fact that it's not complete.
Yeah.
Like, if it was a complete series, it could be way higher, I imagine.
Yeah, and there's going to be, like, what, another 5 books in it or something?
Yeah.
Somehow?
But, yeah, so most of the books, I don't know if I should just, like, I'll just list them off, I guess, for interest's sake, of, like, what, not, like, my list, but, like, the books I saw the most. Yeah. They seem to very consistently be in the top books of all time. I wrote some of them down here, not all of them. But the Rhaenyra Chronicles...
I have not read that.
Yeah. And Rhaenyra is weird, actually. I said I wouldn't talk about them. But when I look back on it, I read it fairly recently, and when I look back on it and remember it, I'm like, like, it's the story's about, like, this amazing fighter and this thief guy. It's kind of cool, but it's nothing special. Mm-hmm. But when I finished the books, I remember feeling, like, really sad. I was like, I don't want to leave this world. Like, I was like, this is just, like, they're my friends, and I don't want to leave. And it was... Yeah. It's like, but the story doesn't seem that exceptional. But what did he do? There's some sort of magic in there.
Did he, like, write good characters or something?
I think they're really good characters, actually.
Yeah, like, that's the one, like, characters written to a point where you can, like, oh, I can relate to these characters.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like they're your friends and you're going along with them almost.
Well,
like...
with Terry Pratchett's books, when Terry Pratchett died, I was very sad. Someone I've never known. Yeah. Like, never even heard him talk. However... He put so much of a personality consistently into his books. You felt like you knew Terry Pratchett from his books.
So, speaking of Terry Pratchett, so one that was very high was Discworld, obviously. Mm-hmm. Another one was Good Omens, which I don't remember being that good, honestly. Like, I think it was okay, but, like, I don't know. I didn't like it, like, extraordinarily.
It's a very funny book.
Yeah, but,
it's like, a very, very funny book.
I would say, like, any Discworld book is better than it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can see that, exactly.
Like, I think it's good, but...
It's diluted by what's-his-face?
By Neil Gaiman. Yeah. Neil Gaiman's a good author, too. It's just...
Yes, it's diluted by Neil Gaiman, and, I mean, maybe it's just Neil Gaiman's popularity helping people recognize it more than Terry Pratchett's books.
But I think Discworld was generally higher than Good Omens. But, yeah. So, Discworld, like, you really get a feeling of... Like, Terry Pratchett would just be a fun guy to hang out with. He'd be, like... He'd just have these... Because he has so many insightful, like, quaint English, like, things.
Yeah,
and
well...
Like, he called his Alzheimer's, which ended up killing him, a buggerance. He's just, like, such a...
Well, like, in books, like you're talking about Armisfell earlier.
A buggerance.
Talking about Armisfell just a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So that book has these really clever things... That the overarching bit is clever, and then there's, like, a few little clever bits here and there.
Yeah.
All of Discworld, like almost every single sentence is clever. Like, and he wrote them fairly fast too.
Yeah, like it's...
So, like, for someone to write books like that fairly fast, and for almost every single bit to be clever, he must have been pretty clever.
Well, I always thought, like, comparing, like let's say Garfield to Discworld. Yeah. It's like Jim Davis has to think of one joke a day, whereas he had to think of, like, a joke per sentence.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impressive.
And he managed it, too. Mm-hmm. Like, almost every single sentence is clever. Or funny.
So, yeah, Rhaenyra, I don't know what it is about it, but something about it just, like, it just feels good, like, almost for some reason. So I bought, like, the prequels. And I never liked prequels, because I feel like I know how it's going to go. Yeah. But... like, it's more of them, and I just didn't want to leave them.
Well, the Loch Lamore series, right?
Yeah. The Gentleman Bastards.
Yeah, Gentleman Bastards.
Yeah.
The author regretted what he did in his first book to his characters because he killed a lot of them off. Yeah. And so he wrote 2 prequels so he could have those characters more because he missed writing about them.
And I think that's... I don't know, you have to stick with it almost, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, that author, like, suffers from extreme depression.
Yeah, he looks like it.
And it gets reflected in his writing.
It's just there's this really bad photo of him online if you look him up, Scott Lynch, and it's like I don't know what's going on, but his lips are like super red and he looks insanely pale and his eyes are like really baggy and it's just like, oh, it's not a flattering photo.
Yeah, but he's
incredible author.
Yeah,
so
but-
he's in that top 10 list all over as well. The
Oh,
Gentleman
really?
Bastards. Yeah.
Yeah, but he regretted what he did.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to rewrite or just add more stories.
So another that's really common was the Wheel of Time, of course.
Yeah.
And because it's a Wheel of Time centered channel.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as high up as I would have thought for a lot of people. Because I think a lot of people are like me. They kind of like, they see his channel and like, oh, I liked Wheel of Time. It's got some cool characters, but...
I'm not going to devote my life to it.
No, but then he also does other content, and so they watch that. And it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch people do top 10 lists, actually. I don't know. It's like...
Oh, of course it is.
It's like a brilliant... Because you're kind of like, I want my thing to be in there. Come on, it's going to come. And then you get to hear like, yeah, it's my thing. And he's going to talk about my favorite book now. Yay!
Yeah, it's like top 3. Yay.
And it's really... I don't know why. It's just so exciting. Like, it's I think... like.
Oh, it's confirming your agreements.
Yeah, it's confirming your beliefs and also
or-
learning about new amazing books.
Or, if your thing's not in there, you get to feel superior because this person's obviously so uncultured that they don't like your favorite thing, and then you can feel smug and satisfied that at least you know what the true
Daniel
best
Green's
thing
book
is.
didn't have the Malazan Book of the Fall in it. Like, what does he... He doesn't know
Well, exactly. No, people are like, oh, this is so good, and then you like think this is far better than whatever he has, and so you think about how good it was again. So if it's there, you're like, haha, I am clever because I like the thing that's good, and if it's not there, like, oh, I know it's better than him. I am better than him because he doesn't have the thing that I think's better.
So another...
Like that's, I'm not saying everyone's that
No.
conceited, but that's just sort of like the micro psychology or whatever, or like the subconscious going on.
So Malazan was very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter was very popular.
Yeah.
The Witcher was very popular. I haven't read those.
No, I've heard they're actually really good.
Yeah, so I kind of want to read them. The first book is called Blood of Elves or something. Immediately turns me off. I'm like, is that really...
Ooh, so much edge.
Well, it's more like just... It sounds like the most generic fantasy name ever.
Yeah.
Like the Blood of Elves. I don't know.
I mean, I bet I could come up with some more generic fantasy name, like the Sword of Sharanara.
No, because Sharanara is like a bit interesting at least. No,
Or
you'd be like
the Sword of
Empire...
Truth.
No, you'd say like Empire of Swords.
Or the Throne of Glass. Or...
No. You got to say Empire. You got to have Empire and like...
No, I'm quoting all the names of that one book series with the assassin in it. Like every single title, like the Throne of Glass, Empire of something. It might not be. It might be Empire of Swords, but it's just every single thing is so fantasy named.
So another quite popular one, speaking of
Assassin books.
assassin books, is The Realm of the Elderlings.
Yeah.
Which in my top 10 list is is the top of my list. My favorite fantasy series of all time. It's The Realm of the Elderlings, the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy. And,
Trilogy.
well, the Farseer trilogy, yeah, because it's a trilogy of trilogies. And the Live Ship Traders I don't like as much, but they're decent. Once you get it, they're really hard to get into, I found, but once you get into them, they're kind of good.
So boring.
Well, every chapter with the pirate is like, oh, it's exciting now.
Okay, the pirate was fun to read the initial bit. Everything else, I was just bored.
Yeah, but Realm of Elderlings, actually, I debated putting in my number one because books are amazing. Like, Robin Hobb has written a series that follows a character more than any series ever. Like, that is, this character you watch grow from 6 to 60. Yeah. And you watch every step of the way. Like, there's a part in the last...
Vindsvept Apprentice is sort of close to that.
There's a part in the last book where he's on this journey, and he goes through one of the teleporters, and he arrives on this, like, windswept, like, mountaintop. And he's like, he has to set up camp there, and he's resting, and he's really injured, and he's setting up camp, and so he like sets up, and he finds like this abandoned campsite, and he goes over to it and uses like the ring of stones to light his fire, and there's like this tattered old tent and stuff, and he realizes, and I realized before he realized, and because you're meant to, books do that where they make you feel clever before the character react. This campsite was from like 7 books ago when he was like 17 that he set up one time when he was journeying in the mountains. And it's like, this is like in universe, it's like 50 years later or something. And it's like the amount of history and like the geography is consistent. It's not like, I don't think many books really fail at this, but you never really revisit areas, I find.
Yeah.
And this is like, he keeps crossing back paths, and the paths change as time goes on, because he lives so incredibly long. And you just like follow him like week by week, day by day. you see like him and this girl he likes, they grow up and then they get married and then he die. Well,
You should really read The Ranger's Apprentice, except maybe the last book of the
It
series.
just sounds like it's a ripoff of the Assassins of Fenris. I don't know.
It's a very good book series, except for the last book, which is really depressing
So,
and sad.
Realm of Elderling's last book is awful.
So it's like the last book of The Ranger's Apprentice. The last book of Ranger's Apprentice is awful and sad.
No, it's not sad. Well, it is sad, but it's just... I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And I kind of... Well, I liked all of it except like the last like 10%. And it just really, really disappointed me. It's like, this is how it ends? I don't know. And so it kind of made me want to put Harry Potter higher than it, but I think it's still my favorite.
And even books is hard.
Yeah. Harry Potter did a pretty good ending. Like, Harry Potter, his scar hadn't hurt in 19 years. All was well. That's pretty solid.
And this is why I ban books. See, I have to make this unnatural break just so I can get in. You're listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
All is well. Play comes out.
Yeah, Cursed Child doesn't exist. Holy cow, that's horrible. I was like, I was telling to you about that, but the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child or whatever it's called, is just absolutely terrible.
Garbage. Throw it away. Throw it in the Sarlacc pit.
It's so bad. It wasn't written by J.K. Like, you're like, this can't be written by J.K. Rowling, and then she admits it wasn't written by her. And it's like, no wonder. Like, this is... I can't believe that this was allowed to be written. Like, it is so incredibly bad. Like, Ron is an idiot, and Harry is an abusive father, and Hermione is an idiot, and like...
Ooh, no, she can't.
And like, Harry is angry at his son for becoming a Slytherin, and there's like time travel, which they've gotten rid of, and they like... And what's his name? Cedric Diggory becomes a Death Eater because he is humiliated in the Triwizard Tournament, and it's like, Cedric Diggory wouldn't be...
He's the best guy.
He wouldn't become a Death Eater. Ron's not an idiot, Connor. He's like as smart as Harry, and he knows more about magic than Harry.
Yeah.
Like, the movies really don't
I know.
treat Ron kindly, actually.
I've read the books.
It's like it's like a bad fan fiction of the Harry Potter movies. That's what Cursed Child is.
A bad fanfiction of the Harry Potter movies is Cursed Child.
Yeah, it's just... And apparently so many people are like, you have to see because I've only read about the script.
Yeah.
And so maybe people... Because a lot of people say, like, oh, you got to see the play. The play's like... Someone said, this is the best play I've ever seen. It's going to go on for ages. And maybe if you know nothing about Harry Potter and you're just there for the special effects, it's good or something. But the plot sounds stupid. Like, it destroys the characters. It's not the same characters. It's not the same rules. It's not... and it's just time travel plot, which is already... weak. The only book I've ever seen do time travel well, I think, is Thomas Covenant, which was on the list actually, but only by like 2 or 3 people.
Well,
Thomas Covenant is, I don't know.
There's a few books that I've read about have good time travel, and there's one book that I read that had good time travel. However, those books are based around time travel.
Yeah.
Apparently, The Time Machine actually has like some of the most solid time travel ever, and it's like one of the first books about time travel. And the other book that has really solid time travel is a book based on the author of The Time Machine, and it's about him, like, time traveling. Well, it's actually about a bunch of scams set up in London about time traveling that people all think are real. It's a really good book.
So yeah, the time traveling is very difficult to
Yeah.
do. And the way Thomas Covenant does it is, I think, the best way to do it, where it's like a closed loop. So what they go back in time and what they do already happened, basically.
Yeah.
And that's how Harry Potter does it as well. Harry Potter does a good job, actually.
Yeah.
It's just that the Cursed Child doesn't. But the problem with time travel is, unless you're very careful, it gets rid of all, like...
Meaning,
because you can just undo events.
Yeah.
Which is why the closed loop is important. But even the closed loop doesn't quite work, because they heard, like, a thud and a swish with an axe, and it's like, oh, Buckbeak's dead. But what actually happened was Buckbeak escaped, and that was him crying as he escaped, and the executioner was angry, and he slammed the axe into a fence post.
Yeah.
And so they sort of... So you have to see it for it to be real or something?
Yeah.
Almost. But...
Well, Artemis Fowl actually did time travel okay.
Oh.
Like, their time travel's actually okay.
It's okay, but it feels like a prequel thing, so it's like the whole, like... we've already been here. We've already treaded this, and Artemis Tall knew about fairies beforehand. I didn't like that. But someone else who does it really well, actually, Orson Scott Card. Because he does everything sci-fi well.
Yeah.
In his,
Oh, that book
what's that series called?
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder is so much bullshit.
He doesn't do closed loop time travel. He does realistic time travel. It's like
It
every
hurts.
time people discover time travel, they don't discover it because since they discovered it, they don't need to discover it.
Yeah.
Jasper for 48 as well does a really good job with time travel, actually, in Thursday Next. Same thing. Time travel was invented. The guy went back in time and gave the time travel to a bunch of people, and then no one ever invented time travel.
Yeah, well, the thing that upsets me about Pathfinder is the first book is really good. It's actually one of my favorite fantasy books, or science fiction.
Yeah.
The second book is the most self-indulgent, annoying, just slog.
You haven't read enough Orson Scott Card, obviously.
It is so... No, I've read a lot of it. I think I've only read the good ones, though, perhaps.
No, all of Orson Scott Card's good.
It's just so self-indulgent.
He just loves children discussing deep philosophy for like 50 pages.
Well, I read like the Bean books, so all the Shadow books,
Yeah.
and those are quite good. And A Planet Called Treason is one of my favorite books of all time.
It's the story of a man who gets super cancer.
Yes. Actually, yeah, Planet Called Treason is one of my favorite books.
Yeah, Planet Called Treason is about a boy named Lanik Mueller.
Yeah.
Who gets...
Lanik.
Lanik Mueller. The voice act... They do... There's an
It's an
audiobook
audio,
with an amazing...
Reader.
But yeah, no, he gets like super...
It might be one of my favorite because of the reader.
He gets super cancer, and he's like... His cousin tries to assassinate him. His cousin's an idiot. Because like everyone in their families...
No, his brother. It's his younger brother.
His brother tries to assassinate him, and his brother's an absolute idiot because everyone in their family is basically immortal.
Yeah.
And so he like cuts his throat, and he wakes up with his throat cut, and then it heals like almost instantly, and he's like, someone tried to kill me.
Yeah.
And so he runs away from home to try to find a cure for his super cancer because he's basically like his cancer's turned into like Machop or whatever. Or
He's gained multiple arms and various other problems.
yeah, and then he learns all the powers.
And grows an extra head and stuff.
And then he like when his head gets cut off, it grows its own body and becomes like an evil clone of himself.
Yeah. But then he gets superpowers and becomes Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Actually,
Yeah.
it's a bit weird. But Orson Scott Card, has written so many books.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of them are let indulgent. You'd never read like Speaker for the Dead or anything?
Nope.
Yeah, because that's like a lot of like.
No, the Bean books are a lot less self-indulgent because Bean's so smart he doesn't need to be indulgent. Bean's just smart. You know Bean's smart. He doesn't have to go, ho, I'm smart. He's just, I'm Bean. I win.
Or his what was it called? It was called like there's this book about like these people in stasis who crash on a planet, and how stasis works is you get put in suspended animation for as long as you want, basically.
Yeah.
And your memories are backed up because you lose your memories when you do it, and then they get injected back into you. But when the ship crashes, all the memory stores are destroyed. So there's a bunch of adults without any memories. And so they have to settle this planet and to the point where they can build a beacon and basically get help. But none of them remember this, so only one person remembers, and he's their leader. And he tries to teach them like a mythology that will allow them to eventually like. And that's like the first half of the book, and then the last half of the book is just like a background of like the world, and so it's.
Did he write Cruel Miracles?
Yep.
Oh.
No, he's written so many sci-fi books.
Because he also wrote that really... I didn't like the book about the monkey.
The monkey.
The intelligent monkey. It had... They're like super animals, and it's a colony going to a far planet, and it's a super monkey who's trying to find a mate, basically, and they're not meant to.
But yeah, he's written so many books, and he's an amazing writer, and he likes
The Goo
to.
Boy. Ugh.
Oh, that yeah. He likes to go a lot into
He likes going dark.
He likes exploring religion a lot as well,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. He's a Mormon, but he's not. Mormons don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
he is a member of the Church of the Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Amen. Or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, that's a funny thing. So I was reading about that.
Yeah.
So a lot of members of that church got upset with that because they...
I can't blame them for not wanting to be called Mormons though, because it's called the Book of Mormon, so it'd be like calling Christians like Bible heads or something.
Yeah, but like it's just too much. Like the short form is kind of useful.
Yeah.
And it's just too long. Like being called a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints was even a bit long.
Yeah.
Like what was it? COL. Like
They just call them LDS a lot of the time.
LES or Even some of them even just used Mormon because it's easy.
Yeah. And, like, if you were called, like, people that read the Bible, like, biblios or something, that's not the worst thing, I guess.
Yeah. Bible heads.
Bible heads. Biblio. So, yeah, why were we talking about Orson Scott Card?
Oh, we were talking about books.
Right, yeah. So, another one that was really common was Lord of the Rings, obviously.
Yeah.
And The Witcher, I said. Also, the Broken Empire books, which are, like, the Prince of Thorns and the Red Queen's War and all those. Very good. They're not in my top 10 because I haven't read them in so long. I don't remember if I liked them that much or not.
You seem to enjoy them.
I really liked them, but my top 10 list is pretty solid.
Yeah.
You are listening to Windswept, Through the Woods We Ran. You are also listening to The Fool and the Philosopher. The other music at the very beginning of our show is provided by Adrian-von Ziegler, and it's called Into the Sun. Check those guys out. They're all really good, and I think you might enjoy them.
Any Hexwood-like books in there from what's her face?
Oh, Diana Wayne Jones?
Diana Wayne Jones?
No, one that surprised me. Well, The Witcher I didn't know anything about, but the one that really surprised me was people were asking if, like, mangas counted, and Berserker was in there a lot. I don't know anything about Berserker, but people were very, like, a lot of people seem to like that. Well, apparently it's quite good. I think, like, you can like Japanese literature. I mean,
You're just a weed.
I think Dresden Files was decent. No, I don't remember if it was common or not, actually. But yeah, that was sort of the main ones. Like, very repetitive. I saw Edge Chronicles once. I saw a few of Redwall and stuff, Brian Jacques.
I never read Redwall.
I read, like, one book and I got really hungry. He describes food so good. Oh, Stormlight Archives, of course, was huge.
Oh, Brandon Sanderson books?
Yep. Oh, yeah, Mistborn was in there. And actually, most people's list was... Higher up was second trilogy of Mistborn, and then lower down first trilogy of Mistborn.
Yeah.
I like the first one better, I think.
I like the second one. I like them a lot, both on their own merit.
But I don't really remember liking either of them, like, hugely. I don't know.
I really
they don't really
like them.
Like, because it's just too... Like, Brandon Sanderson's books are all a bit too, like... Like, why are there weird slime creatures that shapeshift? Like, it always bogs down to that for me, where he's got, like, a bit too much in his world. There's, like, in Lord of the Rings, I think everything, like... You know, you got your elves and your hobbits and your orcs, like, it all fits for me. But then he always puts something in that just feels a bit like... It's always like when you play, like, Baldur's Gate or something, and they add gnomes, and you're like, do you need gnomes? You already have dwarves and hobbits.
What about the book with the priest in red armor?
Elantris.
Yeah.
Actually, Elantris I really like.
There wasn't any, like, weird creature in Elantris, was there?
No, but it's not always the creature, sometimes it's just the world, and, like...
The demon priests?
Well, there's just a bit too much in the world. Like, it feels like you could, like, you could have slightly less religious cults, and you didn't have to have, like, a city full of zombies. You could have, like, half a city full of zombies. And, like, you don't need an earthquake as well. You can have, like, a sinkhole or something. I don't know. It's just always a bit too much, I find.
There's too much and too little writing.
Or it's not even too, like, it's just the world has overlap. It's not efficient. Like, you need everything to be completely different and unique.
What about the Emperor's Soul?
The Emperor's Soul, yeah, it's pretty solid, but then there's, like, the weird, like, group of thieves with, like, the sword of Nightblood. Like, if they got rid of Nightblood and... No, sorry, not the Emperor's Soul.
Yeah.
In Warbreaker, though, like, the Nightblood and stuff, that whole subplot could go away. And Emperor's Soul, see, I think that one's pretty solid, but there's a bit, like, really the book could be half the length. With, like, she basically has to say, like... This door is open, and then she can leave. Like, but no, like, I don't know. There's always something like Steelheart. It's just a bit too much into the science of, like, superheroes. I don't know. I always find there's something
a step too far. Always.
Yeah, in Brandon Sanderson. So I'm not sure.
There's a cognitive realm in.
Yeah. See, okay. So this is one thing I don't like about Lord of the Rings. I never liked it about D&D. Mm-hmm. I don't like it about Lord of the Rings, and I don't like it in Stormlight. So in Stormlight they have the cognitive realm, which is actually the best I've seen doing this.
I hated the cognitive realm.
D&D has planes, and they really bother me, because I used to think that planes all overlapped on the same plane, and it really annoyed me, because I was like, wait, why is there, like, so many layers of reality, and you only access one, and you can flip between them? They do that in Malazan as well. Don't like it. But Malazan, it's confusing. I don't know if they're other planets, or if they're other realms, or they're planets and realms, and
it's the blood of a god.
I'm pretty sure they go to different planets sometimes, though.
No, but it's just the arteries of a god.
No, that's the connections between them.
What?
And
okay, never mind.
but the connection is also the entire dimension. But there's a part where they like switch dimensions in the Karkanos trilogy, and they go from like the dimension of the Dark Elves to the dimension of the Lizard People, and the entire Malazan Book of the Fallen takes place in the Lizard People's realm, not the Dark Elves' realm.
Really?
Yeah, and so all those like realms that are side shoots of it are from the Lizard side shoots, not. And then there's like the different universe they pull the Crippled God from. And I don't understand any of that, so maybe it gets a pass, maybe it doesn't. I have no clue.
I don't know how it works.
Lord of the Rings, I don't like how the one ring doesn't turn you invisible. Like, I just want, like, plain and simple magic. It
does turn you invisible.
No, it doesn't. It switches you into the Wraith realm. And so there's a secondary realm over the world, and I don't like that.
No, there's 2 realms.
See, that's even worse.
There's the physical realm, and there's the spirit realm.
Yeah. And I don't like that sort of thing. So it's just a bit much. So that's Harry Potter. Magic is magical. Like, I really like that.
Lord of the Rings magic is magical.
Until, like, you go explaining and like, power levels.
It's not even explaining or power level. Lord of the Rings magic is magical. It's just religious as well. He was very religious,
but there's
so that's what the spirit realm is.
Yeah.
Like, there's no explaining the power levels in Lord of the Rings, ever.
But everyone always goes on about it's just a bit too analyzed, I think. Like,
well, that's just people analyzing it.
But he fed into it. He wrote like 1 million letters and like wrote history books about it and like.
That's because he was indulgent.
Yeah, so I think he went a bit too much into it. I think Lord of the Rings would have been a great standalone, like.
But people always want more.
Yeah, and you shouldn't give it to them, otherwise you get the cursed child. So yeah, see, Harry Potter. This is I talked about metaphorical magic like a long time ago. Harry Potter does magic better than like any other book, I think. It's so good. And I
think Diana Lloyd-Jones does magic pretty good.
No, she
has no idea what she's doing. It just works.
No, I think Harry Potter does better. So Harry Potter, big thing it does, really good, is the character who is like Brandon Sanderson in that series, who like looks at magic analytically and like treats it as science that you can explore and like, you know, like a teleport spell. Oh, you could use this to like to open a portal kind of thing or something. Like the person that really like goes into depth with magic and analyzes it more and more. That's Voldemort. Voldemort treats magic like it's science. Mm-hmm. Brandon Sanderson is Voldemort, yeah.
Brandon Sanderson is Voldemort.
Whereas Dumbledore talks... You know Power of Love? Like a lot of books use it. Pretty lame in most of them. Harry Potter does it so well. Like the power of love actually works in Harry Potter.
Power of love.
But it actually works. Like that is... Like they actually...
You need to use the power of love.
Like...
Love.
Dumbledore says you have a power Voldemort knows not. And Harry's like, yeah, I have the power to love. What does that mean? But he's right. He can make alliances. He can trust people. He can protect people. It actually is huge, the power of love. Like she does it so incredibly well. Like I don't know how Harry Potter was written. Like it seems like there shouldn't be a person this clever. Like it's actually amazing.
And then you
look at her Twitter.
You look at her Twitter or
what happened, Connor, was Harry Potter fine through her brain, like wore out her brain insanely fast.
You know the whole thing, like in ancient Rome, they had poets, right?
Yeah.
And people didn't believe poets could be a thing. Like, it's the gods channeling through you.
Like, poetry was just gods channeling. So all poetry was also prophetic.
Yeah.
Which is why Homer is really weird, because it's like, so we know a guy wrote the Odyssey, but there's a religion based on the Odyssey? How does that make sense? But the reason was, you couldn't have an author. So Homer was just writing down what the gods told him to, and the gods were telling him the past.
Yeah. And so she just had like some god channel through her brain. And now she's trying to grasp at the threads of what was once there.
Or I don't know. I don't want to, because she wrote such a good book. I don't want to, but she's doing the most bonkers things. I don't know. It's confusing. But in Harry Potter, whenever something seemed bonkers, you're like, the only way this would work was this, but she wouldn't do that. And then she does. And so she is actually insanely clever with like misleading your expectations. So maybe she's playing the long game right now.
It's a long con.
It's a long con. There's hope. But Harry Potter magic, it's like all like Avada Kedavra, for example. Insta-kill. Wizards can turn invisible. They can teleport. Surely you can have teleporting like invisible wizards shooting like death spells left and right. But they don't. Why don't they? Because magic's metaphorical. That's not what you do with magic. You can't do that. That's not how magic works. You cast the spells. Like, it's good. Mm-hmm. It's really good. And also, like, a teleport spell is a teleport spell. A levitate spell is a levitate spell. And yeah, I think Avada Kedavra still is a bit too far, but they don't use it like overly for some reason. And the reason, there must be some reason. Like it
You're straight up killing someone.
yeah, I think it like probably like Dresden Files. I think as well does an insanely good job of metaphorical magic.
Yeah.
But the one thing Dresden Files does is their usage of energy kind of bothers me, because basically all magic is any source of energy, and wizards tend to use emotions, but they can also use like ley lines or electricity and I don't know why wizards don't always just use electricity or like heat, because there's so much heat in the world. Like you could just be using heat nonstop. Like Harry cast this massive fireball by drawing heat from water. Yeah. Also, it makes ice magic kind of dumb, because you can actually gain power by casting ice magic if you think about it. Like, I can freeze this entire lake. Oh man, that's going to be a difficult spell. Actually, it gives me power.
However, wizards will also fry themselves because you can only have so big of a wire, and wizards are a wire.
Yeah. And Harry's shields, right? Yeah. He doesn't need shields. He needs to absorb the energy that's shot at him.
Yeah, just absorb it all, fry himself.
But what he does when he freezes the lake is he shoots a massive fireball out. So imagine you shoot your hardest hit at a wizard, and he like catches it in his left hand and blasts it back at you in his right. Like,
well, Cameron, the greatest wizard of all time was Buddha. Good energy in, negative energy out. That's what the hand thing is. Like,
well, that's what they do in the Dresden Files as well, though. Actually,
I know, but so like if Buddha was in the Dresden Files, he'd be a super wizard.
Well, he probably was, given how Dresden Files takes in every single mythological figure.
So like Buddha was like the strongest wizard ever.
Yeah. So I think, Harry Potter's.
Yeah, well, with just going back to your magic though, magic Harry Potter, like I used to do this thing when I was like trying to create worlds and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd go through these things like, all right, there's this magic and it can do this. This is the rules of what it can do. Yeah. And it's like very, very solid. Like, okay, this does this. This does this. This is how magic works. This is like, these people can applicate it this way so it can be clever and stuff. Yeah. And that wasn't really magic. Yeah. It's just different science, like you said.
And that's how Voldemort treats magic.
Yeah.
But that's why Voldemort doesn't understand the Elder Wand's transfership. This is huge. Like Voldemort's inability to love and the way he treats magic like it's science.
Yeah.
He kills Snape, who kills Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Which means he killed the killer of the Elder Wand. So obviously he killed the one who defeated Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Except Snape was doing it at Dumbledore's request, which meant that Snape wasn't defeating him. He was helping him.
Yeah.
But that seems really arbitrary. That's based on intention.
Yeah.
And that's not scientific at all. That's just intention. Like, if you kill someone with the intention to ease their pain rather than kill someone with the intention to defeat them, it's a difference. And so that's why...
Dumbledore was trying to destroy the Elder Wand.
And that's why science doesn't work in magic. And that's why Brandon Sanderson is just doing science. And that, although in Stormlight Archives, I think he comes the closest to magic. Because the cognitive realm is a really good idea, I think, actually, for his series.
Yeah, well, I came up with a character who he's just immortal. And, like, a world I designed, like, just thoughts of, like, people just are, like, there's a witch. And that's just what she is. Because, like, in fantasy, they're used to just be like, oh, this was the witch. Or whatever. It's like, how did the witch get her power? How did all this? And if you go into it, it's like, oh, so much stuff. But then it could be, there's just a witch. And there's just this guy who's immortal. And there could be some story to how they got it. Or, oh, what's the upper limit of their power? Because if you don't put a limit on it, then there's a problem with the story. Like, people don't know what the limit is, and then your story can have holes where you can just have someone with too much power at any moment.
Yeah.
And so that's partly why people try to put too much law of analytics into it, is so they can set limits to themselves so they don't go too far.
All right, so yeah, I think, and that's why Brandon Sanderson made his laws of magic, was so that you can do cool stuff with magic.
But it's so you don't go too far.
But really, what you're doing is cool stuff with alternate science, which is still cool, but it's not magic.
Yeah, and so like my whole idea of like, all right, so there's this guy who's immortal, and so it's now he's immortal, right? He's a king. So if you have an immortal king, like, he better be a good king.
Yeah.
But also, like, he has got this tiny little fiefdom, which has grown bigger because he's immortal. And so he's like a petty prince, right? But if you're an immortal petty prince, what can you do with that? Like, you can just keep expanding. But I'm working on the process thought with him as he's an immortal. That's it. Or the witch character, like, she's a witch, so she has all the aspects of a witch. But I'm not going to go, and so her power is derived from, like, draining the life force of a swamp, and so if she drains all the swamps, then she can't cast her magic anymore, and all that stuff. No, she's just the prophetical witch.
I think, like, there's something to, like, draining power from a swamp in a way, but it would be more like, as long as there's swamps, she has powers or something.
Yeah, that would be more like her way.
Yeah.
But so I'm just trying to do like the prophetical thing. Like there's a wizard in a high tower. There's a warlock in a dark forest. There's...
I think actually Thomas Covenant does magic really well too.
Yeah, it's just that whole idea though of like... It's not like, oh, this is the way, there's spellcasters, everyone has access to magic, or you just have to do the right thing, you have to be born with magic, whatever. I'm just trying to come up with a way to make a world that has magic that's magical, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do once you've read Brandon Sanderson and people like it, because you're afraid not to limit yourself, almost. Because if you don't limit yourself, then what do you do?
I think... Yeah, and it's very tricky. You have to, like... it's a very hard balance. And I think... Because then you can always just pull out another spell to save yourself.
Yeah.
So I think Harry Potter... the strength of Harry Potter is... Harry is a young wizard who doesn't know spells, so you see every spell he learns, basically.
Yeah.
Which means he's limited. Which I think is one way to do it quite well. The way that Gandalf kind of works is all his stuff is fire related, it seems like. And also Gandalf...
Fire and light.
You don't really need Gandalf to... Well, he gets rid of Gandalf quite quickly as well.
Yeah.
So...
But Gandalf's fire and light.
Yeah. Although rereading Lord of the Rings, I'm doing that right now. And, like, how powerful Gandalf is, like, every situation, it's like, what do we do? And then Gandalf comes up with a solution. When he dies, it's actually a much bigger shock in the books, I think, than in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what can kill Gandalf? Like, he is ridiculously overpowered in some ways. and it's like, he's like this Deus Ex Machina in a box. Basically.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, he's Deus Ex Machina in a hat.
It's like, what do we do?
Cameron.
Yeah. It's like, what do we do? Here's the right choice right here.
Yeah.
Here's the right path. Here's the path we take. How do we get through Moria? I know the way. And it's like, okay, I'm lost. I have a good feeling about this path. It's the right path.
Yeah.
Or like...
The air smells a little fresher this way.
He doesn't even say that.
I know.
He says, I don't want to go down, and I have a bad feeling about the straight path, so let's go up.
Yeah.
And that's all he does. He doesn't... Like, in the movie, they make it, I smell fresh air. But in the book, he's just like...
He's just being a wizard.
He's like, I have a bad feeling about the middle path, so we'll go up.
Yeah.
And he's like, every fight he just like wins, and so the Balrog is
terrifying.
But I don't want to. I'm having troubles talking about the Lord of the Rings, rereading it, because I want to say almost about the Balrog. Well, the Balrog's like equal in power to Gandalf, like he's this very powerful creature, and then that takes away from Lord of the Rings, because that's not what it's about, and I don't know how to talk about Lord of the Rings anymore, because I don't want to. I want to talk about it like it's a superhero comic, but it's not, and I don't. But I want, and I feel like when I talk about it that way, it diminishes it, and maybe I'm just wrong there. Maybe it doesn't diminish it, because it's such like Lord of the Rings is quite high on my list, and it's not even because I like the books that much. Like they're decent books, but there's books I like better. But it's just such an evocative world. Like it's amazing. Like you just want to keep diving back into that world.
Yeah,
it's like. Man, that is world building. Like I don't think anyone's done anything like that.
Yeah, well, that's why people can actually read the Silmarillion. Like, also, the Silmarillion is a history book.
Yeah,
with a little more romanticized story than most history books will ever have. But it's a collection of notes and like short stories and ideas. And why it's good to read is like, whoa, I'm getting to go back into his world after Lord of the Rings. And see more of it.
And that's why everyone wanted all those letters and all the stuff Christopher Tolkien keeps publishing, because it's like, I just want to keep going back, because he made an entire world. Like, a lot of stuff, like Harry Potter, I think she sort of did that, but it's incredibly small. It's like Hogwarts and the Ministry of Magic. Yeah. And it's cool, but it's very small. Yeah. And like
you want to be in Hogwarts, though. Like, you read the scripts like, oh, I want to be inside Hogwarts.
Yeah. But like Realm of the Elderlings, like I said, like there's so much layers and history within the own books. But it's not a world where you would say like, and there's like this thing over there and this thing over there. Like the Realm of the Elderlings is very light on the fantasy in some ways. It's like there are dragons, but they're all gone, and that's basically like there's sort of undead things, but they're not undead. They're like mindless people, but they're like caused by something. There's not like the giant wastes and this thing. And a lot of fantasy books do that, but they don't go into it. Well, Lord of the Rings is just such an evocative world.
With Lord of the Rings, you're like, all right, I'm going to start in the Shire. I'd love to go to the Shire for a bit. And it's like, let's take a walk to Bree.
I don't even think I don't want to be in the Lord of the Rings world exactly. It's more like
okay, this is the way to Bree then, and then, oh, over here is like Rivendell, and then we can go down from Rivendell to the Misty Mountains. Like, you sort of know the world, like, you get a feel for it.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's like, Mirkwood, that's got the spiders. Edenmoors, that's where the Witch King lives.
Yeah.
Shire, that's where the hobbits are.
Yeah.
Rohan, that's where the horsemen are.
The Horse Lords. Not
Minas
horsemen,
Tirith.
Horse Lords.
Minas Tirith, that's where the Gondor people are. Mordor, that's where the orcs come from.
Yeah.
Osgoloth, that's the ruined city. Oh, over
Gondabad.
here, there's the Grey Wastes. That's where... Oh, Haradrim, that's where the Sauron... Where the Haradrim are from.
Yeah. Hardar.
Harad.
Hardar.
Harad.
Okay, is where the Haradrins are from.
Harad. They're from Harad.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, the Misty Mountains, that's where the dwarfs are. It's just like...
No, they aren't.
Oh, sorry. Like, Erebor. The Lonely Mountain, sorry, I meant. The Lonely Mountain, that's where the dwarves are. You're just like, do. Moria, boom. Oh. And there's just like, it's such a rich, like, tapestry of things. I don't know. There's something about it. And you just keep wanting to go back and, like, the board game, Lord of the Rings board game, it's just so amazing because you get to, like, feel like, I'm going to go, and especially with the expansion I got recently, because you're like, I'm going to go through Mirkwood, but wait, there's spiders there. Oh, I'm going to go. And you just like, the world is so alive and it's amazing. And I think a lot of fantasy books, like Thomas Covenant as well. That's the only book I think is possibly equal, but Thomas Covenant doesn't go into like languages and all this sort of stuff. So like Lord of the Rings just, like Thomas Covenant might have the same cool races and stuff, but that's just the first step of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has roads, it has named lakes, named mountains, languages.
Ruins of what happened in the past, and it's like, oh, this is an old place. Songs, it has friggin' songs in it.
Cultures, songs, like stories, legends, like it's got it all. Whereas Thomas Covenant doesn't really have legends so much, and it doesn't have its own languages, and it has its... Thomas Covenant's world is beautiful, though. Like that's... It's like Thomas Covenant...
And the author destroys it.
Thomas Covenant probably comes the closest to Lord of the Rings. Besides, like the Stormlight Archives is an attempt to do it, I think. But it's not done yet, and it's kind... The problem with the Stormlight, actually, is the Shattered Plains are really generic. You can be anywhere in the Shattered Plains, and they're all...
And you're in the Shattered Plains.
You're in the Shattered Plains. Whereas pulled out the map of Lord of the Rings, and I was like, oh, they walked here, and then they walked here, and it said they went for this 5 days south, so they'd be here, and oh, that means that they crossed this river. Oh yeah, they did cross that river.
Actually...
Whereas the Shattered Plains, it's like, oh, so they were on plane 327, and then they went to plane 648.
Learning a little bit about, like, just reading a little more of the Sabriel series.
Yeah.
That's actually a world and magic which I'm really endeared to.
It feels kind of...
It just...
empty, though, I think. Like, it's...
Well, it is empty, which is one problem.
Well, that's the same as the Stormlight. It's a very empty world.
However, there's more to it than just being shattered, broken ground, because there's the ocean stuff in the map, and there's the Void Realm, and there's a bit more to it. But I just love the Sabriel series, or Everson. Actually.
Well, actually, so
like with the bells, that's so cool.
Yeah. So my top 10 list.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll read it just quickly. Okay. So number 1 is Realm of the Elderlings.
Yeah.
Which I said. Number 2 is Harry Potter. Because I just reread that and it's great.
Yeah.
3 is Malazan because I don't know if we've talked about it here, but it's just like...
I don't know if we talked about Malazan, but...
We've said a lot about Malazan, but I don't know if we say why it's so good. It's a literary work, like literature, like something that Dickens would write or Tolstoy, but it's a fantasy book.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It works really well. And there's so much history and just like cool stuff. It's like that combined with like a comic book combined with like...
A manga.
It's really cool. So then Dresden Files. I find Dresden Files, I can just keep reading them. Like he knows how to like draw you in. Like you want to just keep reading them.
You can just keep eating them.
It's like eating cookies, you know. Yeah. You don't have to force yourself to do it. You just like keep going and going.
You go back for more. Oh, have another cookie.
It's harder to stop than to like anything. Lord of the Rings, just such an evocative world. I don't even... The story's okay. But the world is just like, I don't know. I just keep coming back to it. I just keep thinking about it. I'm just like, Balrogs are so cool. Gandalf's so cool. Like every single thing in Lord of the Rings sticks out. Yeah. Like the problem with Mistborn is I'm like, there was like 10 characters and like, what? There's like blue people and there's like slime people.
Yeah.
And there's...
I forgot about the blue people. Yeah.
And it's just a bit much almost. Or not, it's not a bit much. It's just they don't stand out to me.
Yeah.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, every single thing stands out brightly.
Yeah.
Discworld. That guy, like...
Every sentence is clever.
So I read every sentence is a joke. Every sentence is clever. He writes about the human experience, like War and Peace and Discworld. I think are like very close in like talking about the human experience and like seriously, he doesn't get awards because he wrote fantasy.
Yeah.
But man, he deserves to be given like literary awards on the level of like Tolstoy and Dickens.
You
and
remember
stuff.
that bookstore where like his book was up on the front counter, and then someone's like, "Oh, what's this fantasy book doing on the front counter of the bookstore? We should move that to the fantasy section." And then the assistant next to him was like, "No, this is Terry Pratchett. This is Discworld. This is like some of the best books out there."
Yeah. Like, I think Malazan also deserves to be up there with those sort of awards, but it's so hard to get into. I can't blame people if they don't. Malazan's like the hardest like fictional book to read I've read, I think. Then I put Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time, I think it's way too long. There's a lot of sections that are poorly written.
But
There's way too much stuff in. I think it could be 7 books long instead of 14. Like, actually, I'm pretty sure you could cut out 3 of the books easily and then half the length of all the other books and you'd have 7 books. But it's just so epic. Like,
yeah.
So it's like
It's the Wheel of Time.
yeah, and
Like listen to some Blind Guardian.
or like that guy that does those Wheel of Time covers. What's his name? Like
Yeah, look up Colors of Trust.
yeah, there's a guy who takes songs from Wheel of Time and just it's so like it just like if you go to be a soldier and the author was a soldier, so he knew what he's like like there's so many big battles and just like the main characters you're just like yeah, Rand, yeah, Matt, Perrin's there too. And
Perrin's there too. Poor Perrin.
Galad, Egwin Alver, the leader of the Children of Light, the Aes Sedai, the
Perrin, woo, he's got a hammer.
like it's just like I don't know, it's an epic.
Yeah.
There's just so much. It's not an epic like a Ballad of Beowulf, it's an epic at just like there's actually epic's probably the wrong term. It's just massive.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculously massive. I think it has the most characters of any book ever. It's the longest fantasy series ever besides Discworld, I think.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
Great bloated.
It's this great bloated mess, but it's just like you just keep thinking back like, oh, these characters are so cool. And it's like if you're given like some way too I have never played an MMO, but this is what I imagine it's like. It's like World of Warcraft is way too big and you just play through it and you're like, this is way too big and there's like so many bad designs and it's just fetching bear pelts and stuff. But it's such a big world.
My bear pelts.
No, it's just such a big world. You just want to like go through.
Yeah.
But I don't really know much about it. Like, okay, how about this? This is something I do know. The Total Warhammer game. That game is way too big to play properly because like to conquer everything would take way too long.
Yeah.
But it's just so fun to like be like, I'm Skarsnik and I'm gonna go attack the elves and like it's just this massive world with so many great characters. Warhammer actually, that should be on this list. Warhammer's so good. I don't know why they don't know how to make war game, but they know how to make lore. Holy cow. Yeah. It's like the
they
best.
Know how to build a world.
That is the best lore in like any game. Like most games are like, that was a fun game, but the lore, whatever. Like Age of Wonders, my favorite game of all time. The lore is but Warhammer
you play the game because of the lore.
The lore is so amazingly good. I don't know how. Alright, so number 8, I got The Gentleman Bastards because it's just so fun and clever.
Yeah.
Like that it's just such clever fun books.
Yeah.
I haven't read them all even, but
I have to read.
They're
I have to get the last book still.
They're so fun and clever. Rhaenyra is in here, number 9. Because like I said, it's like I don't remember what stands out, but I just never wanted it to end. It's just like don't go. I don't know. I don't know why. Aberson is my number 10 because it's kind of similar to Wheel of Time. It's not my favorite books, probably. Like, I probably like The Prince of Thorns better. But Aberson's world is just so evocative.
And it also took up a lot of our childhood.
Yeah.
A lot of our childhood was taken up by Aberson.
And it's just so, like... it's
possibly caused my obsession with necromancy.
Like, the necromancy is so cool. And I still do design a lot of board games. And one of my favorite characters to put in every board game was a Mordecant, which I thought was like a thing, but he made it up. He made up this really cool undead creature, which is like a man that moves like a dog and has flaming eyes, and like
it's a bog monster.
They can jump for like hundreds of feet, and it's just really cool. Well, for maybe not hundreds of feet, but like 20, 30, 40 feet. Yeah. And I don't know, super evocative. Like the necromancy is super cool. The bell is amazing. There's just so much about that world that's cool. And the runes, like it's just the right amount of stuff. It's really cool. He's got 3 kinds of magic, and that's it. He doesn't break their rules. He doesn't like go too far, but it's still magic.
Yeah.
And it like free magic is Pokemon. Charter magic is shouting loudly,
Yeah.
and bell
wiggling your
magic is yeah, and bell magic is ringing bells.
Yeah, ringing bells that want to be rung differently than you ring them.
Yeah, and it's just so good. Garth Nix, holy cow, he does not get it. He is the best children's author there is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my number 11, Keys to the Kingdom, another Garth Nix book, because it's so good. Like Seven Towers, not in here, but that's amazing as well.
I need to reread that, honestly.
Seven Tower maybe should be in here, honestly. Keys to the Kingdom, though, it gets better the older you get, honestly. I keep thinking back to him, like, he called them artful loungers. Like,
Yeah.
that is the most clever, like, bureaucratic name ever. I love it. And it's just so good. Holy cow. Keys to the Kingdom. And it's like, it just starts as this, like, really weird story about this kid that gets kidnapped, basically. But then it turns into, like, this super adventure.
That's an interesting thing, because you're saying, like, Brandon Sanderson, like, the blobby creature, what's this? Or the blue men?
Yeah.
And it's like,
But then Keys to the Kingdom has, like, tons of things, and they're all so cool.
There's also, like, different than most stuff.
It's like the denizens of the house, the dogmen, the like patchwork boy.
He does things differently, but they're not like a motley sort of blend. They're like shades of distinct brown and rust, almost. Like, they're there.
Yeah,
you can actually see them, and they feel good.
Like the seven towers. What's it called? The seventh tower.
Yeah,
Seventh Tower series is like, wow. Like the creatures in that are amazing. Like it's all about like creatures and like, because basically you bind a creature from the Shadow Realm.
basically Pokemon.
So there's a world called the Shadow Realm, which is where the sun is, and everyone lives in a place that's been magically blocked off from the sun. So I don't know why they call the real world the Shadow Realm.
Because there's shadows up there cast by the sun.
Oh, so they don't have shadows in their world.
Yeah.
I wonder. But their world is like pitch black, and the only thing that lights it is like glowing crystals everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to like the world where the sun is, but they're afraid of the sun because it allows these creatures to survive or something.
Yeah.
And these creatures are just, everyone is so unique and cool, and they basically, you can catch one with your crystal, and then you get like, they get storm shepherds, which are like the most boring of the creatures there.
They're storm giants.
They're storm giants, they're like clouds that shoot lightning.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's the most boring creature there.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Giant blue cloudmen.
Yeah, because they're like the most intelligent, I think. They
Yeah.
can like talk and communicate and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like the magic is so cool. Like they have these he should write his rules of magic because they're amazing.
I kind of learned about his rules of magic. And
7. You have to have a 7. All his series have 7 in them.
Well, so
777.
For the Aberson series,
Yeah.
there was this poem he wrote. Like, there was these church instruments, which is books, candles, and bells.
Yep.
And book, candles, and bells, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to do magic based off at least one of these elements.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have no idea how to do candles.
Yeah.
Books I can see, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So at least we do with the bells. Later on, he's like, all right, eventually I'm going to do a book with candle magic because I figured that out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like the idea. And book magic you can figure out. Book is contained with spells. Like, a book has
What he
spells.
does, actually, I know how he does magic, actually, thinking about it. He has rules, and he doesn't break them. But they're not rules like you can lift 3.6 milliliters of water if you exert 12% force of pewter burning or something. It's like, all right, Keys to the Kingdom. The weakest half of Monday's key allows you to say something and it will happen.
Yeah.
So if there's a collapsing pile, let's say, of sand, you can say stick, and the whole thing will stick together.
Yeah.
Or you can say, or like a guy loses his head and he sticks his head back on and he says like heal or attach or something, and it attaches. Or you can say freeze and he like knocks over a denizen who falls over solid.
Yeah.
So you can give one-word commands with it. Mm-hmm. Both combined, I think you can give like multi-word commands possibly. I'm not sure. And then Tuesday's key allows you to shape and hold nothing.
Yeah.
Wednesday's key allows you to access the realm of lost things, I believe.
Yeah.
Thursday's key...
you can access multiple rounds.
Thursday's key basically makes you like a super warrior, as I remember. Wednesday's key...
No, Friday.
Friday's key makes you...
It's a mirror. You can see people.
But you can also like steal their souls. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's something to do with emotions.
Yeah.
Saturday's key is kind of more vague. It's very powerful.
It's a quill. You can write things.
Oh yeah, you can write things and writing is insanely powerful in those.
Yeah.
Actually, that's where he did book magic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, whatever you write is true in the house.
Yeah.
So she has the...
Like, he's done book magic multiple times.
So she has a quill that can write, which is very... And then Sunday's key can do anything.
Yeah, Sunday's key makes you God.
Yeah, Sunday's key makes you God. And those are the rules. And keys to the kingdom. The higher up the electromagnetic spectrum you are, the more powerful your crystal is.
You mean the Seven Towers?
The Seven Towers, sorry, yeah.
Keys to the kingdom, the farther along the
I
days
just did the
you
keys
are.
to the kingdom.
Yeah, keys to the kingdom, farther along days.
And then Aberson, the bells are all very clearly defined. If you hear Astral the Weeper, you die. If you hear Liana the Sleeper,
you fall asleep.
You fall asleep. If you hear the Marcher, you're forced to walk.
Yeah.
If you hear the Binder, you have to obey the person.
If you hear the Speaker, you have to talk or you can never speak again.
Yeah, they're very clearly defined. Free magic in that realm is more basically, you can bind if you defeat a creature in combat that is a free magic being, it must serve you perfectly, and then you can command it to fight other creatures, and if it wins, then they must serve you.
And those
and then those two can fight a third creature, and then that one can, and so you can just get more and more powerful.
Free magic creatures rules is E equals MC squared. Literally, it's mass to energy, energy to mass. That's what they do.
Basically, yeah, they're just like pure energy.
And charm magic is there's words,
and every single word does what it says.
Yeah,
but
Angmar can kill you.
Yeah, if you say words that you're not ready for or you're not powerful enough to say, then you'll die.
Yeah.
And like a master charter, like if you're not skilled, will kill you, and even if you are skilled, it'll probably make you like mute.
Yeah.
For like a couple days.
Yeah.
So my number.
Or knock you unconscious, make you bleed out of your nose and ears.
Yeah, my number 11 was Keys to the Kingdom. Number 12 is the Edge Chronicles, because that's another world that's just like,
it's got stuff, but it's good stuff.
It's so cool.
And it's helped by the illustrations.
A lot of this stuff, it's stuff I keep coming back to, and I'm just like, man, I want like a Luftwood skyship crewed by Banner Bears, or like you just keep thinking
I
of
want
stuff.
a Luftwood bed.
Actually, why don't they make Luftwood skyships?
Maybe they're 2-point.
But they don't float unless you burn them. So, but it would be super light, right?
Yeah.
And so if your ship is going down, like if your ship's struck by lightning, like rocks become heavy when they're hot.
Yeah.
But if the lightning also hits your ship catches fire and then it floats, and so it bounces out.
What I think is too flammable.
Or what about Blood Oak? Like
there's Blood Oak ships.
Oh, because that stuff's like
they scream.
Because that stuff's like super good for.
Yeah,
like,
no, the giant ships made out of Blood Oak, like those giant. The sky
those,
whale.
The sky whales.
The sky whale was made out of.
See,
blood.
This is it. You can just talk about Edge Chronicles forever. That's part of my list. It's like Harry Potter, talk about forever. You can't talk about Realm of Other Things. Harry Potter, talk about forever. Malazan, talk about forever. Lord of the Rings, talk about forever. Discworld, can't talk about. But then like Aberson, Keys to the Kingdom, Edge Chronicles, talk about forever. The Seventh Tower, I never talk about, but you could.
Yeah.
Like the Monster Maker game in that, honestly, I've wanted to play forever.
Yeah.
Someone needs to make that. I would play that. So, Edge Chronicles, holy blood. Like you could be Blood Oak. Oh, that's so like. We're talking about tree types. We're like Luftwood, Blood Oak. Like he does trees cool.
Yeah.
They're so cool. The trees. Lullaby Forest. Cut that down. Make a tree out of that. Yeah.
Lullaby Forest. Cut down. Kill the skull pelts.
Yeah. And then, like, take a real caterbird nest, make that your caterbird nest in your sky ship. You'll get some, like, termagant trogs to help your ship, get some troll. Like, it's just such a cool world.
Ooh, let's put... this race is good to have in this position. Oh, let's have this thing in this position on my ship.
Yeah.
Oh, these things are Farsight. Let's put them up high.
Yeah, I want, like, keep those stupid, like, wraiths. What are they called? Wraiths or wisps?
Wisps.
Yeah, those, like, big-eared bat things.
The mind readers.
Yeah, keep those away from me. Ooh. And, I'm going to go to this
Have
land.
a few shrieks or hammerhead goblins as your security force.
Oh, look, this is like a buoyant sap made by the glass giant centipede people that served the Goblin Queen. I'm going to fly on this little, like,
weird boat thing
that they invented with their buoyant sap. Yeah. It's just like...
Wait, what? Buoyant sap?
That world is just so massive, it's ridiculous. And then, like, the last book, like, zooms out, like... Because the world is ridiculously huge, and you do also... And it's called the Edge Chronicles because it takes place on, like,
a cliff.
This cliff edge. And then the last book, it shows a picture zoomed out. The cliff you can barely see, and, like, it goes down for, like... hundreds of kilometers, and it's just like, and then it shows this massive plain beneath it, and you're like, this is a big world.
Yeah.
Like the world is large.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy cow.
And then it's like, all right, he sort of does that thing where it's like there's these magical things in the universe, like different science. And then it's like, this happens to them if you do this.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's put this further. So, like, there's a magic rock, which gets really heavy.
And they grow.
And they... No, not that rock.
Oh.
The really heavy stuff that's exposed to light.
Oh, yeah, that.
And it's
No,
like...
that's not a heavy rock. That's solid lightning.
Yeah, solid
If lightning hits the Twilight Woods, it freezes in time.
Yeah, there's solid lightning.
It's called storm shards,
Yeah.
I think. Or
Yeah.
storm frax.
Yeah, there's solid lightning, and if you hit it with a hammer, it explodes.
Unless you're in the Twilight Woods or at twilight.
Yeah. But then so I was
The
like...
darker it is, the heavier it is.
Then he's like, later on, like, he establishes these rules, then he's like, alright, we're going to load these into guns, like tubes,
Yeah.
hit them with hammers inside the guns, have a giant explosion in a chamber
Yeah.
to propel wooden bullets.
I just had a thought. It's like, hey, you insulted my wife. Well, I'll challenge you to a duel with pistols at twilight. Click, click, click.
Yeah.
Like, they take the science and they just keep expanding it. They're like, all right, so there's these rocks. They get heavy if they're hot, and they get light if they're cold. Also, they grow over time. So there's the stone gardens where these rocks grow bigger and bigger, and we attach them to chains so they can go really big. And it's like, what if we got a really big one and attach it and then it's like, oh, that's cool. But the problem with the really big one is it can float a lot, and that means it gets higher up, and it's colder higher up, so it floats even more. So we're going to take that lightning, and we're going to put in a chamber inside that's super dark,
Yeah.
so that it is a counterweight to this giant floating place. But then people steal the counterweight and sell it because it can purify water, and the pollution from the industry is making the water undrinkable, so everyone wants stormfrax shards. So the ruler of the giant floating rock is selling away the inner bits of his rock, but that means the rock is getting lighter again and flying away, which means they need to attach chains to it. So the chain building industry is huge, which means that they pollute the waters more. And
Oh yeah, and by the way, there's these evil spirits that live inside the rocks that try to drain your soul.
yeah, and there's like the Glomgloser,
Yeah.
who was invented by like
A
a scientist.
And it's a demon that lives inside the rock that can shapeshift and enjoys other people's pain.
And it's just such a great series, man. Edge Chronicles, so cool. And then my number 13 is Thomas Covenant. That's kind of fitting, actually. That's number 13. Then I put in King Killer, not because I don't think King Killer's that great, honestly. I think it's like a very ordinary fantasy world. There's nothing really special about it that stands out. But
He's such a good writer.
he's an amazing writer, and like there's clues all the way through the books that are like, I spent like 2 weeks with a friend of mine who had just read it, like, wait a minute. This line in this poem, if you read all the words...
If you invert it and then reorganize
There is
the letters.
seriously stuff like that all through the books, where it's like, if you read these two words clumped together, it makes a different word, and that means that this person is this person's ancestor, which means that this door behind it contains this, but because of, like, the book is full of that, and it's so cool. It's like a puzzle book. Really cool. And then I put in Prince of Thorns and the Red Queen's War, because, like, just from memory of really liking them, but I don't remember why, but I remember really liking them. And the Red Queen's War I remember thinking is my favorite book of all time. And Stormlight I put in number 15 as well. Because Stormlight, like, I really love...
He writes leadership.
Yeah, and the I don't know, like, I never remember anything I like about it except Kaladin. You know,
Yeah.
Kaladin's awesome.
I like Dalinar.
But, like, all the characters are actually pretty cool. It's just... I have troubles, like, remembering why I liked a book, but Stormlight's pretty cool. Although... Stormlight, sometimes I'm kind of like, eh. Like, if a new book came out, like when the Oathbreaker came out, I was like, I'll read it when I get to it. So, I don't know. But it's still very good. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know, Brandon Sanderson's always kind of a, for me. Like, he writes really cool books, but they're never, like, must-reads for me.
But then when you start reading them, you read them.
Yeah. Like, there was a point where I almost read every single book he wrote, and then I read some other books, and then he wrote, like, 600, because he's super... I don't know how he
He's
writes.
a freak. That's the thing that Brandon Sanderson does. He's a freak. He can write.
He writes way too fast.
Actually, the rhythmatist.
Rhythmatist is very cool as well.
That's... No, wait. No, it's got extra weird stuff. Never mind. But
Actually, does it? It seems
it's
pretty...
got the weird, evil people that possess the writer. It's
Oh.
not explained.
Well, I think that's okay to have. Like, it's just, I don't know, like the Kolos and the maybe it's the names as well. The names aren't that great, but like the blue people and the slime people, they're just not that exciting to me.
I like the slime person that's friends with Wayne. I like Wayne. I really like Wayne.
But they're just like, they're not exciting, like cool. Like, I don't know, like they're like okay, but they're kind of like I don't know why they don't stand out to me as a cool fantasy race.
Because there's blue orcs that grow bigger and their skins get broken.
Yeah, but why don't they just make them orcs or something? I don't know.
Because orcs be more boring.
No, because orcs are actually like very clear. Like they're kind of muddy. All their stuff is like muddy. It's all like What
Yeah.
are you? What are, I don't. And he doesn't really focus on them either. They're just sort of there sometimes, and I don't know. They
Yeah.
don't. They're like they're always like refugees in their own tiny little society that nobody cares about, including me. And it's just like if I lived in like that world, they'd be like, and how will this policy affect the Kolos? Kolos? Oh yeah, those blue people. I forgot they existed. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot those things were a thing. Yeah. It's like if there was like another continent on Earth that had like elves, and but like elves, I'd be like, yeah, elves. But this, every time like something happened, how does this affect the elves? But if it was the Kolos, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like we're gonna ban the color blue. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I wouldn't think about like the Kolos,
Or if it was like,
or it's like, oh yeah, there's those shapeshifty people things.
the faceless immortals.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's this weird shapeshifting faceless immortals, whatever.
Yeah, but if it's like, how is this going to affect the low belly goblins?
Oh yeah, the little golems in there, like, or like, what about the what are those massive goblin mothers called?
The I can't remember.
Like one of their
Gross
hive,
mothers.
the gross mother hive.
Yeah.
We must get an opinion
The
from the gross.
knob-nosed goblins.
We must send a message to the gross mother hive, and the hammerheads, those fierce warriors from the south or east or whatever.
Or the tufted goblins.
Tufted goblins. We must, or like the webfoot goblins. Those like nature hugging sissies. The crested goblins. Yeah, that's what they're called. Crested goblins.
How's that going to affect the slaughterers?
Yeah, or the slaughterers. Or how's that going to?
How's that going to affect the quarrelings? No one cares about quarrelings.
No, everyone likes the quarterlings are the main race. Like they're the biggest race, I think.
No, they're the lowest population.
Are they? I thought they were the highest.
No, they're the lowest.
Oh, okay. But the quarterlings, they're like the
Goblins are by far the most numerous.
But there's so many different kinds of goblins. Well, probably
The knob-nosed, I think, or the
the hammerhead. I love
Or the
the
shrieks.
flat. I love the flathead or the shrikes. It's like we must send a treaty to the shrikes. They're the only one immune to the Twilight Forest to bedazzling effect. We must ask them to reinforce the road.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, like the races are so cool. But in this, it's like, but in his, it's like, oh yeah, I guess the blue people like are kind of like humans but angrier, and the shapeshifters are like humans but like
Shapeshiftier.
autistic and like shapeshifty. Yeah. And like,
then there's all the weird, creepy wisp things.
so they're just like ordinary people, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and whereas the
The Termagant trogs and the Clawderfoot trogs and the
it's
just trogs.
yeah, or like the like they have trolls as well, I think, right?
Yeah.
And what was Screed Tolltaker? Was he a quarterling?
Yep.
Okay, but he was he's just a guy on his own. He's awesome. It's just
Well, quarrelings are basically combinations of our races.
yeah, they're every race. So they basically look like elves.
Yeah, but or like Twig's Twig's daughter was a quarterling slaughterer.
Yeah.
And so she had like fiery red hair.
But like the white goblins or whatever, I hate those things.
Oh, with their beards.
Those things that like swarmed the ship and killed.
The
flathead goblin.
Yeah. Oh, the mini savage goblin. Oh. No.
What are you doing? Cutting onions?
Oh, and
With head splitter, the sword you use to kill your foes. Yeah.
also they killed the goblin and the quartermaster.
Yeah.
Oh.
The only good quartermaster in the entire series.
The only good quartermaster ever.
Like, quartermasters are just plain evil in that series for some
Except
reason.
for like 2.
I don't know, that one guy is like Twig's quartermaster I don't trust. There's something dodgy about him.
No, there's nothing. He's a good guy.
I think like he betrayed, like he ended up, like Twig died, Connor. Twig got sent to like the Spring of Resurrection.
Yeah.
And then ended up dying because of that. And it's all the quartermaster's fault because he abandoned the crew. Well, the entire crew abandoned Twig. But he was one of the crew that abandoned Twig.
Or the poor. Oh, yeah. I just feel sad now.
Just Twig and like Banderbears. Ooh, and Wigwigs. Oh, and Prowlgrins. Oh, I want to ride a Prowlgrin. How will this affect the Prowlgrin populations of the planet?
I think we're going to leave it there.
But basically, Edge Chronicles is like Earth. Like, it has animals for everything.
Yeah.
Like, Stormlight kind of does that, but there's like 6 animals in Stormlight.
Yeah.
There's like, you got your wisp things. What are they called? What are all the things? What's the main thing of the Stormlight called? Like
Spren.
Spren. You got your Sprens. You got your living grass.
You got your bugs.
You got your giant crabs and
horses.
Like that. There's 4 things in the series.
Yeah.
Like, whereas, like, there's, like, they make their own trees and everything. It's amazing. Yeah, and, like, Lord of the Rings as well. Like, they're mostly normal trees, but Like, there's a bunch of different races, and it's like, whereas Brandon Sanderson's are just kind of like, Brandon Sanderson's worlds, I guess, feel empty almost. I say there's too much, but they also feel empty. It's like, there's 3 races and no animals.
Yeah.
There's my world. Bam. But where's butterflies?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it doesn't help that he does apocalypses. Like,
Yeah.
the Shattered Plains, everything's dead.
I think that's one of
the First Empire, everything's dead.
Yeah, all his worlds are populated by, are apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Like, which one of his worlds isn't apocalyptic?
The Warbreaker.
And Warbreaker, yeah, okay.
Warbreaker world.
One of them.
And Elantris, well, I guess there's the earthquake, but so there's Elantris is fine. There's just that destroyed city full of zombies.
Yeah. Right. I think we're going to leave it there, though.
You're done?
Yeah.
All right, we're done. Yeah, this is the episode of Breaking the Book Rule.
Yeah. Game of the Bound books. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Goodbye.
See ya.